resume can go a long way in a job search, but many of us don't know what to include in this challenging job market. Plus, things have changed. So here were some important do's and don'ts. Welcome from Olympic Resume in Seattle, John Davidsson. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So you actually are the expert in resumes. That's what you guys do.
I'll take the expert title. Thank you. Sure, absolutely.
So let's talk about this. You know, I haven't written a resume in a long time, but there are lots of things that you and other experts have concluded are mistakes that are commonly made by people. So I want to talk about a few of those in a style guide for what's right now. Sure. Do not type resume at the top, you say.
Right, that's a classic, and I still see it once in a while. I mean, most folks know what the document is when you send it to a hiring manager or somebody in human resources or recruiter. So references upon request, sometimes you'll see that at the bottom too, and in most cases you can either ask for those if you're in the hiring position, or you could go to LinkedIn, for example, to see.
You don't need to say that anymore.
You don't need to say that, no.
You say just give people a single phone number.
I think that's helpful, right? So almost like the bat phone, right?
Yeah.
So one phone number, one email address to reach you very quickly and easily, and even getting your LinkedIn URL on the top can be really helpful. So you can kind of drive that engagement off the page a little bit.
Very good. You say skip using a street address because they're not going to mail anything to you probably.
Right. Yeah. So it could be helpful if you're going through maybe the new hire paperwork, but that's a little ways down the road. So probably not necessary. City, state is probably good enough. And an employer, they could actually look up your home address too. I mean, it's kind of like putting the dates of graduation, high school, college.
Now let's talk about why you might not want to put the dates on.
It's a little bit of a pro-con. There could be good and bad reasons for both of those. But if you do, for example, let's say a bachelor's degree on your resume, you put the year on there, someone could try to do the math. They could guess, well, if you're like most folks, maybe you were 20 to 24 when you finished that. But what if you went back later in life, let's say, or later in your career to finish that degree? It allows for that kind of profiling, and it may, in most cases, you'll see a job description that may have the credential, but you know, of course, they can't put age, but you could be profiled. Somebody could make a judgment call on that.
One way or the other.
One way or the other.
You're too young, or
That's
that
right.
they think you're too old.
Absolutely.
And the same thing, I was so surprised to read this, that you tell us that your home address or a street address could affect you in the same way. Why is that? So
if you think of sites like Zillow or Redfin, right? Great companies, they're right in our backyard. You could literally type in somebody's address and, for example, renting versus owning. So when I talk to my clients, I'll say, have you looked at your credit scores, for example, just to get an idea, because that's a pretty common practice. So there may be an employer that might look at a street address even for commute time and make a judgment call there, or potentially say, well, maybe do we want somebody that owns their own home versus a renter? And you can't, you may never know that as a job seeker on the other side of the desk. Or they might make an assumption about the value of your property and what that means. So just why give them that information straight up front? Very interesting. Okay, so reading and owning a job description. You say use the copy, paste, and highlight method, or no? That's one of my favorites, right. So if you find a job description, let's say on the Microsoft, Amazon, Starbucks, Costco website, it's going to give you some good information. That's helpful. But what if you took that and put it into Microsoft Word, let's say, or printed it out and really highlighted it and truly kind of owned it, right? Read through the keywords, highlighted those. Most job seekers don't do that. And it's actually a great exercise. I do it with my clients. And a lot of times, too, you can compare your job description and then your resume. And linguistically, do you see the same types of keywords? Do you see the same core competencies? So it's really enlightening for a lot of folks to do that. So it's not that you're going to put that on your resume, but you're going to tailor your resume to make sure it matches the job description as closely as possible. And the keywords are important in part because sometimes jobs are put through a filter that is just computer generated the first time, looking for keywords. That's right. Yeah, and a lot of times when you find a company's website and you're looking at the employment part of that and the active job, sometimes even in the URL you can see the applicant tracking system that they're using, ATSs, the algorithms, the resume robots. So your ability to match up to that job description may affect whether a human being ever sees your resume
Right.
in the first place.
Isn't that something?
So
Okay,
that's important.
let's talk about a summary. So how do you summarize, you know, when they ask you for experience or you're trying to put all this together, do you put a lot of that information on your resume, or do you put it on LinkedIn and put that URL there? What's the best way to summarize who you are?
So I think you really do need a true, what I call an executive summary. So a lot of times job seekers will say, well, how do I answer the question, tell me about yourself?
Yes.
Which sometimes is code for summarize your career in a nutshell. And so helping somebody understand, for example, how many years of A or B or C type experience is really helpful. Most resumes don't really give us the synopsis on the back of the book, right? So if I go to a bookstore, I might flip that book over. There's that nice synopsis. I don't have to read chapter 1 or 2. Many resumes I see, if there literally is no summary, I have to read the resume, whether I really want to or not. So
give yourself a blurb.
I think it's necessary, really do. And LinkedIn has a spot right up below your picture, right for a summary. A lot of folks don't use it. It's kind of interesting. So
Should you put your picture on your resume?
that's a tough one, because anymore it's almost a foregone conclusion, because an employer is probably going to look you up on LinkedIn, right? So a lot of times resume leads you to LinkedIn as a next step. And it's kind of expected that you'll have it there. Putting a picture on your resume could actually gum things up with those applicant tracking systems, just like infographics or a lot of blocky, non-text type widgets.
Okay, let's talk about that, like the grocery lists, the bullet points, the super paragraphs. You say don't?
Right, and so a lot of times I'll see a summary is a good example, where it's just a big block. It's like a Wall Street Journal paragraph. Black text, no bullets. So maybe helpful if I'm willing to read every bit of it, but where are the keywords? Where are the bullets? As in, what if it looked a little bit maybe more like a great PowerPoint presentation?
Okay.
Right? Kind of step by step, easier to skim. Many of us naturally may skim a document before we truly read it. So it's that 30-second.
Right, just to help them get you faster.
Right.
Should you have it more than one page?
If you have enough experience, I think in many cases that's a great idea, because if you're putting your resume into an applicant tracking system, let's say, and there are a lot of keywords, putting everything onto one page may make it fairly difficult to actually match all of those keywords. Some job descriptions are fairly lengthy, and some job descriptions may put right in there, must have 5 or 10 or 15 years of experience. So if you've got that career heft, then it actually could be pretty helpful, in my opinion.
Okay, so there are lots of great sites, you say, with good examples. You know, the Microsoft Library is one, the Harvard Business Review. How can we use those to kind of compare our own resume and see if they are up to snuff?
I love the Microsoft template library, because most of us probably use Microsoft Word to build our resume. And you've got some native ones built into the software, but on their website, you can actually download quite a few, and you can just take a look at what's out there. And I try to do this with my clients and just say, what do you like? What stands out to you? Do you like the idea of a picture? Do you like the idea of an objective? Or this type of summary versus that type of summary? So it can be really helpful to see what's out there, and you know that they're probably going to work really well in an applicant tracking setting when you post it, or when you print it. So you kind of have to please two audiences. So you've got to get through those applicant tracking systems many times, and if you and I were looking at it as human beings, we probably have to have a good experience as well.
That's
so
interesting. So
has
you
to
really
do
have to do those two things.
bit of both.
And then we have just a few seconds, but you also suggest that we run this by at least one of our mentors or a person that we respect.
Absolutely, right. So there are folks like me, that's great, but I ask my clients, find a mentor, find a guru, somebody you trust, somebody who's known you longer than I've known you as a support person. Have them take a look at it, get an extra set of eyes on it. And if your new resume doesn't teach them something, we might want to kind of go back. It should teach someone that you know something new about you. Hopefully it delights them, helps him or her make a decision, and hopefully you're proud of it, where you want to share it, you feel good about it, and that should translate into a better interview. Really.
That is awesome.
So,
thank you very much. Or you could do the Elle Woods thing and put it on scented pink paper. We'll be right back.